Hey Alice, fancy
Hi.
seeing you here. You walked in at a good time. I got Kevin from Mid-Park joining us via the internet. How's it going,
Ooh,
Kevin?
it's going great. Hello, Alice, as well. Big fan of Alice in Wonderland. Big fan of the whole, theme and the idea behind Alice in Wonderland. Saw that movie absolutely stoned one point when it came out. I don't remember what year that was. The remake, of course. Um, but yeah, hey, it's going great. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I appreciate you being here. So let's talk about Mid-Park. I guess first of all, where are you based at?
Yeah, I am currently in my hometown of Canton slash Massillon, Ohio. It's basically one of the same, but I'm about an hour south of Cleveland. I kind of call like on social media. I always put my location as Cleveland because that's kind of the nearest big city, and that's where I've been frequented my whole life. Went to Cleveland State, lived there for 3 years. I am 31. Been all over the place, especially if you cut the United States in half. I've been about everywhere east. But I lived in Nashville for 3.5 years, from 2016 to about middle of 2019, and then I lived in Chicago for about almost 3 years, um, and that was largely tainted by COVID. I was there pretty much like during that exact time, and then now I've been back here with my mommy, living here at home for the last about a year and a half already, but looking forward to getting back out somewhere at some point. But I know those are really long answers. I'll probably have some long answers. If you need to cut me off at any point, please do. Yeah,
No, no, I prefer rambling. Um,
cool. I can do that.
uh, very cool, man. Did you just already kind of know a lot of artists and then decided to get into promotion, or was that what made you decide to do that?
I know fucking one, not a one. Music, really, my love for music. I guess kind of is the background of that. I mean, as we were talking off the recording, this started as a creative outlet for me. Even prior to this, I have always been interested in music. Going all over the place here. My main background growing up and such is sports. Always played sports, been involved in sports, still love sports to this day. But as I grew up and things happened, life happens. Music became very important, even more than it was growing up. And then I was laid off of a corporate job right when COVID happened, and I just was like, man, fuck, I'm sitting. I need to do something. I'm, and boom, the idea came to me sitting at this very table I'm at right now, not in this exact spot, but this table. It just came to me. Mid-Park is where my dad went to high school. My dad passed away. He's the biggest influence of kind of what everything that drives me every day. And so all of this back to how I got started with the bands. After about a year in, I switched what I was doing. I was covering sports, politics, news, all of that, and kind of just went, the reason that I started this in general is because of my love for music, art, all of that. Let's do that. Honest to God, man, just started playlisting. That was the first thing that really like worked. I had my Instagram and I started this playlist, Midwest Magic, which there's a lot more about that since, but that was the very first one. It was just all bands on through the Midwest that I found on Spotify, and I would tag them on Instagram. And I quickly realized how thankful and how genuine that connection was with local bands. That were looking for exposure and such. Because prior to that, when I was doing music stuff, I was just covering my favorites like Pink Floyd and John Mayer and Led Zeppelin and all those. I'm sure some people probably just cringe that I put John Mayer between those two, but sorry. But I realize nobody gives a fuck about what I have to say about those three because there are 900,000 other outlets in the world covering them. And I realized how easy it was to find these bands. With Spotify's little suggested feature, and you can find bands on different playlists. And then if you go to their Instagrams, you can find them quickly on Instagram and such. And that's how it all started. So, and I think the timing was good as well because all of this was right at the peak of COVID. So meeting people online was like standard at the time. It wasn't weird, when I was like sliding in people's DMs and we were talking, and it was just kind of like how people were connecting at that time. So that's again my very long answer.
That's awesome, man. Um,
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, Cordy. I think Cordy's that looks like Cobra. Is that Cobra?
Yeah, I'm at Cobra. Sorry. There's all my friends are playing tonight, so I can't stay very long, and it might be loud. So I'm gonna mute and unmute depending on when I'm talking.
Well, thanks for falling down the rabbit hole.
Forty.
But yeah. So that's cool. Were there any like challenges initially when you were starting the platform that you like didn't account for and you've had to overcome? Like, what were your like initial goals, and like now that you're where you are, like, what are your goals going forward?
I never had any initial goals. My initial goal was, again, to just have an outlet for myself. That's how it started. And then I guess, as I started to realize that there was this community of bands and such, this would have been like early 2021, I think. I didn't, and I still really haven't ever set any tangible goals for myself. I've never been that, I need to have this or that. It's more just I guess my goal is to keep going. Um, Very much like bands, and this is where I feel like I connect a lot with bands. And my biggest advice always is to keep going, because there are some days where I feel like I might post some content or something that it's going to get a lot of attention, and it should, and it's really good, and it's well done, and it fucking flops, and then there's a show, especially lately, over the last year, I've been doing shows a lot, and there's been shows that I've organized. I'm like, oh man, there's a lot of people there. There's not at all. But then there's some where we've had 125 plus. So challenges are just, uh, yeah, not letting that shit bother me. I used to get mad, and not mad, but like I take it personal when I'd reach out to bands and they just like would ignore me. You on Instagram, you can see when people have seen your messages.
Oh, I
And
still get very upset. I,
yeah, and I'm like,
I become violent though. I just go to their house.
there you go.
We're doing it here now.
Yeah,
And
that's the best way to go.
Alex is not passive aggressive. He's just aggressive.
Yeah,
Confrontational.
It's whatever works for everybody. But yeah, I used to take that shit personally, but at this point, I just run with the really good connections that I have. Corey's a great example. We've never met in person, but we've been connected now for I don't know how long, year and a half, 2 years already, and that's just one example. There's several venues I'm close with. There's several bands I'm super close with, and it's just like friends in the real world. You win some, you lose some, and I'm trying to do my best and bring it all together. Yeah. And I know I should end that with, I don't have any end tangible goals, but I have felt since day one that this is what I am made to do with my adult life, and this is what I am dedicating all of my time to. And right now, again, I'm 31. I don't care if it takes until I'm 41, 51. I will make this work. So
I feel like that's super smart. Like when you're coming from a place of love and you have a purpose, like it doesn't really matter what your plans are. You're gonna succeed and you're gonna get somewhere
yeah,
incredible. And it's funny that your advice is like keep going, because our mutual friends, Alex actually saw them play Anything Is Everything from Chicago. Shout out to them.
yeah,
You should listen to them. They're incredible. When we finished our set at their show, they said, if I could tell you one thing, it's just keep going, like keep doing it. And it's such a
who's
powerful thing, like not to
Sam said
Nike
that?
everybody. Anything is everything. I don't remember
Well,
who exactly, but yeah.
that's funny. I'll have to look when old Sam and I had a conversation via text. We are currently, when is this going to be out?
Good question. This will be pulling up my calendar. 1 second. The 17th of this month.
Okay. Well, Sam and I are currently working on something together, and that's from Anything Is Everything, and we talked about that. So yeah,
It
yep.
very well might have been Sam. That's really cool though. can you tell us a little bit about the Mid-Park label and like what it is you hope to do for artists with that? Because I feel like indie labels and DIY labels operate a lot differently than, you know, mainstream labels, and that's a good thing because they're there to help the artists. So what do you want to do for the artists on the Mid-Park label?
Make sure they do not get fucked over, and make sure that they keep going. Um, I I have a coaching background in sports. I've always kind of had a leadership mindset, and I have seen in the 4 months since I started the label, it has become much more of management for me and for what I do with these bands. They may disagree, but at least the way I feel, so much more management oriented than label oriented. I don't like. I guess label was kind of the name that I chose just because it's that is the thing. But when I think of label, I think about you know printing physical copies and distribution and such, and I know how to help with that. But at this point, a lot of the questions and things that we talk about with each band has become a lot more like, what do you think I should do here? Can you help me here? A lot of booking as well. That's a big part of it. Booking tours and individual shows, and I think that I could say this publicly for the first time. I do have a goal, and I have something in mind that I'm ultimately going to be doing with Mid-Park and the Mid-Park label itself. Yeah, I mean, I don't really care. I'll put it out at some point. I mean, whether it may take a year or two or what, but I'll probably combine them and have the Mid-Park music group or something along those lines. Because I think they're one and the same. And I'm kind of all over the place here, but it's again very much like Mid-Park. The label started with I asked some people who might be interested in doing that and who might be interested in having I guess me represent them and such. And I was overwhelmingly humbled by how many bands had interest. I think there was at least 25 or 30, and that was great. And so I kind of dwindled that down and spoke to some, and here we are. And yeah,
That's awesome, man. It's it's an honorable thing. Like artists need help. You're you're doing God's work, the God that doesn't exist. Uh
yeah,
the one that's not real.
you're damn right. On
um
you're damn right times two.
yeah. It's yeah, a big part of what I'm trying to do here is like have community. And I'm sure
Yep.
you can relate to it, but like I something I've noticed doing this, like having different artists on talking to them is like even in the same town, not a lot of artists know each other.
Yeah.
Like it's very clicky here, at least here in Nashville, where it's like
Yeah. I was gonna
these
say, are
artists.
you? I know Cordy obviously is, but are you in Nashville as well?
Yeah, yeah,
Are
Nashville.
you in a band?
I'm not. I write poetry and I'm working on a novel right now. Um,
Ooh.
but outside of that, not a musical artist. Do you
Yeah.
play music?
No, and that I get asked that all the time because it would certainly seem obvious that I might, but I have a guitar. Where are we at here? There's one there. I got two more over here, and my dumbass hadn't learned to play in about 15 years.
My mom
No,
is really good at the piano, and she tried to teach me when I was a kid, like taught me sheet music. I don't remember anything she taught me, and I just didn't have the discipline as a kid. But
yeah, I just don't have the. I mean, this is the most cliche fucking answer, but I just don't have the time
mm,
right now. Like I Mid-Park is going great. I also have a 9 to 5. Mid-Park
yeah,
is going great. But like that's two things enough that I need to focus my time on. Yeah.
yeah, I hear you. I'm
Yep.
also working 9 to 5 and super busy with everything I got going on.
Yep.
It's yeah, it's a cool thing that that you have so much love for the community, not being a musical artist yourself. Um,
Well, I
I just think
think.
that's a cool thing you're doing, man. Thank you for
Thank you.
being you.
Well, thank you. Hey, people always tell me thank you, and it's very. I'm not. I don't do well with thank yous. Not to be like a dick at all. I just, man, I don't. I feel like I'm an imposter sometimes. I very much have imposter syndrome. You know, going back to I don't play music. I don't have a musical background, but somehow I find myself with, you know, the greatest connection in the world with some of these really really cool bands and such. And the bottom line comes down to these are my friends at this point. You
Yeah.
know, Diet Light is a great example. They're a band from Milwaukee. One of the first that I ever, you know, really connected with, and over the last 18 months or so, at least for me, maybe they might listen to this and say, "Man, this guy's fucking nuts." But no, I've seen them live. I think 5 times already at this point. You know, all over the Midwest, and it's yeah, you know, that's just one example of just beyond the music, beyond the band, beyond what happens on social media, beyond what happens, you know, on the surface of anything. There's a real connection there that I hope
Mm.
feel, you know, that will last for a long time.
Yeah. It's it is like, I don't know, it can almost be in our society now, it can almost be like disheartening, like how close we are to everybody, and yet like it's hard to make real connections. And then like, you know, when you extend yourself out there though, like people, I'm very much like a humanist. Like I think people are really good. There's We live in a fucked up society, which puts a lot of negativity on us. But
Oh yeah,
I think people are ultimately good, and when you reach out to them, like what you'll find is that they'll catch you, you know? And
yeah,
yeah, it's yeah, community is really important to me. We're based here in Nashville, and I talk to mostly Nashville artists, but we've had a couple artists from Canada, Chicago.
yeah.
Um, yeah,
We're
trying
in
to
Canada.
good question. I think
Toronto was one of the first cities that I ever, the first band, going back to what our off recording conversation, I had a podcast myself. It's kind of died down over the last 6 months or so by choice. I just, again, that was one thing I just couldn't keep up. But um, the first ever local band I interviewed was One in the Chamber from Toronto, Ontario. So shout out to
nice.
them. Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What have you been listening to in like the last week?
Ooh. Man, that's a great question. What happens if I'm on my phone and I pause it, and if I go to my Spotify, would it pause the interview or
I don't think so. I think we'll just still be. I think it won't even stop your video.
can you
Wait,
see
there's
me?
yeah, I can still see you. Is it working?
Um, yeah, I mean, I'm looking at my stuff right now. Okay, here we go. I'm going to my
So you froze, but I'm still getting audio. It's
okay,
all good.
perfect. My on repeat in the last week. So Anya Van Rose is an artist here from Canton, Ohio. She released her album Lucky Stars, and that was I think like a week or two ago. I've been listening to that quite a bit. I just put out my top songs and albums from July. Um, what else do we have here? I mean, all summer I've been listening to Hard Attack Man. That is a band from Cleveland, Ohio. Here,
Hmm.
they just went on a long tour throughout the United States, sold out, you know, several venues, 300 plus, sold several hundred tickets each show. And they released their album Freak of Nature late May. Been listening to that all summer. Um, and then, you know, my usual stuff, which again goes back to the Pink Floyd, John Mayer, Led Zeppelin, Dave Matthews, Bruce Springsteen, um, uh, Taylor Swift.
Hmm.
Uh,
Her
love
last
Taylor
record
Swift.
was awesome.
Oh, Taylor Swift is a remarkable musician. Yeah. Man,
She
I'm
played
all over
here
the
and
place.
it was nuts. The whole town was there.
I'm sure. I lived there 2016 to 2019. She had a pop up show once.
Hmm.
At I can't remember where it was, but it's somewhere in the Gulch,
Hmm.
and I'll never forget that. It was just fucking insane.
That's wild.
But yeah, I'm all over the place. Basically anything but country and rap. I just,
Hmm.
you know, I just can't. I don't. I can't really relate, lyrically to either of those genres for the most part. And then other than Eric Church is a big influence of mine, and he's not so much a country artist. He is because he's got a southern twang and he's associated with that genre, but he also has a largely rock and roll influence in the background. But anyways, I'm just rambling at this point. But yeah, that's that.
Oh, you're totally fine. You said Mid-Park was the school your dad went to? Is that where?
That was my dad's high school, and his uh, username or whatever you want to call it for trivia at all of the bars that we would go to when I was growing up with him when I was, I don't know, 12, was Mid-Park 76.
Hmm.
And it just, when I thought of the how do you say it? Stylization, how I stylize it.
Hmm.
When I thought about it that one day, May 9th, 2020, and just, I always wanted to have something that kind of, meant something to me. And when I thought about it, it just made sense.
That's cool, man. Is that school
Yep.
in Ohio?
Yep. It's actually, so he went to Middleburg Heights Mid-Park High School. Middleburg Heights is the town, and then there's another one, Berea High School. In 2013, they combined and have now become Berea Mid-Park, and it's like a brand new school. But yep, still exists.
Nice.
Yep.
Before we started rolling, you mentioned that you were raised really religiously. I can relate to that. I was raised third generation Jehovah's Witness. Both of my parents
Ah,
grew up that way. I was also homeschooled, so everyone I knew until I turned 18 was Jehovah's Witness. So
wow.
I definitely
Okay.
feel you on that. You mentioned your mother is religious. Was your father also?
No, no.
Okay.
So I wouldn't say I was raised religious. My
Oh, okay.
mother my mother is religious and always has been. I was raised Greek Orthodox, and I was
Oh, okay.
in
Interesting.
yeah, and I mean, my mom took me to church, and I was an altar boy, and we celebrated Easter and this and that, and it never felt right.
Hmm.
Never felt it. I don't know. I could get really into it here, but I mean,
Oh,
yeah,
that's what we're going down the rabbit hole today.
yeah. No, I would love to. Yeah, I it was always just this odd feeling, of like, this doesn't seem right to me. How is that possible? Ultimately, all of this came down to when my dad passed. That is when I think when somebody in your family or somebody close to you dies, you kind of go one of two ways with God. You either completely rely on God, or you realize, wow, that's nope, that's not the way. And that's very much how I was. I realized, uh, here's this man that I have known and loved my entire 23 years of life, 56 years old, now dead, sitting in front of me. And the reality of that is very, very harsh, and then you watch this person in a casket, lowered into the ground, and that is that. Um, there's no God there. Um, and that goes back to a quote that I think it's from Neil deGrasse Tyson. Very shortly after that, when I was kind of really questioning everything in my life and such after my dad died, I heard this interview in which he said, if God exists, then God is either good or powerful, but not both.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely true.
And
You can't have absolute benevolence and absolute power. That's just not. Look at the
right,
world. That's evident by the way the world is. Yeah.
absolutely. And I looked at that, with my dad even, and maybe it's selfish, to think about it, but I'm thinking like, wow, this God exists. Why did he just do this to my dad?
Yeah.
Like why? That seems pretty fucked up.
It is
Um,
fucked up.
and then, I started to apply that to everything in the world. Let's look at 9/11.
Hmm.
I mean, this is just one example. If there's a God, if there's a God that controls everything in the world, why did he do that?
Yep.
That
Uh,
seems pretty bad.
I think I'm at this point in my, like I mentioned, when I was 18, I moved out of my parents' house and got really far away from religion because I just I was probably like 14 when I like started to have some like big questions that weren't no one could seem to answer, and
Yeah.
it's like at least no one there, and it's like um I at this point in my life I have a healthy respect for like at least the Old Testament, just exploring it on my own. And where I have like a lot of frustration with Christianity, Judaism, and Islam as well is all of the people that practice these things or claim to don't know anything about it. Um, it's Christians know less about the Bible than non-Christians, and it's
Yeah.
like Bible scholars that understand that these things are fictitious and books of morals, or and
Yeah.
not those more not all those morals have aged really well either, but um that's where a big piece of my frustration comes in is just the complete lack of understanding from the biggest proponents of it. Um
Mine is much more callous. Mine is I can't sit here and say that I know all of the history, and because it's never interested me. I am very much of the belief that you are born, you have all of the time that you have here on earth, however long that is, and it's really, 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 really fucking tiny, short amount of time in the grand scheme of the world. And then you die, and that's it. And that is a very grim thought. I realize for a lot of people, but that's how I view it. And that sucks. But it's just never like I very much believe we have evolved from natural evolution over time. Um, but my opinions center much around modern Christianity and the hypocrisy behind
yeah.
so much of it. And just it's such a crutch for people. It's a moral high ground that I that's kind of for me. That's where I've always really resented it. As I finally got to the point after my dad passed, and I realized, I don't believe, and that it's okay to say that. I'm old enough to say that. I don't care. I'm old enough. Once I got to that point, I really started to resent it from there.
Mhm.
I respect everybody's right to believe what they want. Again, my mother is very religious. She goes to church every Sunday, and that I love her to death, and she can do that. It's great. Just hate when people try to rub it off on others.
Yeah.
As with anything, politically, socially, let people do what they want.
Yeah.
But yeah, my qualms, a lot of it come from modern. It's a business now,
Mm.
and yeah,
I I'm glad you said like politically and socially too, because you really hit the nail on the head there, man. Like I think at least in my lifetime, politics probably a long time, but politics are it's religious cult. I'm my team. Well, it's actually I like to think of it like sports teams, where it's like my team is the best, even if they've lost 20 years in a row.
yeah,
Like, and it's like that's cool when you're talking about sports, but like don't have blind loyalty to any god or government. Like like we need to have a little bit more rationality with those kind of things than we do like it's this kind of it's kind of cute when you do it with sports. It's like, yeah, my team is the best,
yeah.
but
Well, shit, I'm from Cleveland. I don't know how much you know about sports, but yeah, I mean, we've had a long history of losing, so I get that, and yeah, I agree. With things like sports and casual activities, that's great, but when it comes to things, as you said, politically, religiously, socially, you cannot be. Um, I actually saw a quote from, of all people, who I don't like one real bit at this point, but he did have a pretty good quote on Twitter today, or whatever the fuck it's called now. It was Elon Musk, actually. Said something along the lines of, if you don't if you don't disagree with at least some of your political affiliations, opinions, then you are not in a political party. You're in a cult.
Yeah, you're a cultist. And that's unfortunately, and people want to make this a political thing, but I'm not trying to make it a political thing. Um, Academic science has become the same thing. Like STEM studies, like what they teach you in school is this is it, and don't question it. Where it's like the scientific method is to take your concept and then go out of your way to challenge it, uh, put it up against um, criticism and
Yep.
see if it still holds up. But now we have kind of like this opposite effect where it's like this is how it is, and don't try to question it, which is faith. That's a faith bait. It's a religion.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I know. I am 100% with you. And
It's
there's a lot of things in our society right now that are that way.
yeah.
And it yeah, but it goes back to the original quote there and saying like you have to have your mind of your own. I mean, it's great to have causes and support things and let people do what they want, but it's also in letting people do what they want. That also means letting people think how they want, and let people believe what they want, whether you disagree with it or not, to a certain extent. I mean, of course, if you believe that you should be allowed to legally kill people, it's probably a problem. We need to address that. But you know, yeah,
Yeah, I hear you. I'm like my generation has this issue, and I think the next generation, the one coming up now, is like really has this issue. But people are less concerned about the truth, and more concerned about making sure they say the right thing, because we live in this social media age where like a slight disagreement can like cost you a lot and like an unfair amount of things. And so people are scared to talk about how they really feel about things, which is like not the world I want to live in. Um, like I'm this is just a philosophy show, but it ends up getting into religion. It ends up getting into politics because you can't talk about these kind of things without going there.
right,
But like my one of my favorite things to do is talk to people that I specifically don't agree with, because it's like mm, you know, I don't think I have it all figured out. So like, please tell me if I'm wrong, you know?
yeah,
And we
yeah.
don't have enough of like this kind of conversation going on, I don't think.
Well, even as you're saying this, I'm thinking to myself, all right, how can I word what I want to say without saying it, in a
Yeah.
particular way? First off, I mean, the term, is what it is, but the idea of cancel culture
Hmm.
is very, very, very real. And I think if you say it's not at this point, I mean, I don't know if you're not paying attention. I mean, it's very real. I mean,
If
and
you
it
say it's not,
sucks.
you probably do it all the time.
Yeah, you exactly. You are part of that group. And again, within reason, of course. There are some things that are unforgivable.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
That's why we have a legal system, and that's why crimes exist. And but yeah, I very much agree. I mean, there's a lot of things that I think aren't discussed enough, and that's interesting what you said. It is very much if you are of the mindset of no, we can't talk about this. You cannot talk about this. This is how it is, and you have to say this. That is a religion.
It is.
Yeah, yeah,
Our modern religions just don't have deities involved. It's just rules.
yeah, very
Yeah.
much.
It's yeah, it's a weird time to be alive. Did you see the UFO Congress hearing?
I didn't see the hearing. I mean, I saw that it happened. I saw a few highlights from it on Twitter. The video clips and such of the one dude. I don't know who it was, saying that we do have crash remains, or the body parts or whatever that are not human. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a whole. I mean,
It's a whole thing. You
It's
know,
all that's like ghosts to me.
that was my next question.
Ghosts, yeah,
No, no.
that
Yeah, go ahead.
extraterrestrial. A great example of how I can, put what I'm about to say is I've never really been into movies at all. Never,
Hmm,
like never been into non or never
that's
been into
interesting.
fiction stuff like that. Yeah. In the music and that I listen to is very based in reality. And what I mean is like real life stuff, emotions, life events, dramas. And so I, you know, what was that? Fuck. What did you ask about?
Oh, we were talking about aliens.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So with things like that, aliens, ghosts, extraterrestrial life, I don't want to know. I'm here again for uh if I'm lucky 60 years, and I'll take anything after that. And I, I hope I never come across an alien or a ghost in my life. And but I don't doubt that it's possible. Um if I'm gonna believe in one or the other there, it would definitely be aliens. I mean,
Hmm.
ghosts kind of goes to the idea of Jesus reincarnating. You know,
Yeah.
see,
I
he is risen every Easter,
hmm.
and I think to myself, man, if I just really asked all these adults some logical questions here, have you ever seen a human arise from their grave on their own, disappear, and then come back?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
haven't either.
Um, yeah, it's I know you said you don't have much of an input on it, but if I put a gun to your head and asked you if which way you leaned on this, do you think it's more likely or more likely that we have interacted with extraterrestrials at some point in time, or less or more likely that we haven't at any point in time? It's a toss up, and I know this is difficult because like
Well,
nobody on this planet really has a good answer. Like nobody knows. So
the gun is to my head. So can I ask a question? No.
I suppose.
What do you mean by interacted with?
Oh, great question. Uh, well, I don't really have a more specific. Um,
Like has a human shaken hands with or
hmm.
spoken with a live
Oh,
alien?
sure. Yeah, I can specify this a little bit better. What about Earth in general? Have do you think extraterrestrials have been here, either currently or in the past?
Yes.
Hmm. Okay. Is there anything that makes like anything you can point to that like makes you lean that way, or just intuition?
Yeah. Well, a little bit of intuition, but I mean, I do believe going back to, the original biology of life. I believe in the Big Bang. I believe in everything originating from that. I, I mean, we are a tiny speck of dust
Hmm.
in the universe, and I I really, maybe this is faith as well. Then, maybe this is a religion too, because I don't have any evidence. But I guess my common sense and what I know about our planetary system and biology, and it's hard to believe that with all of the space out there, that there's not something. I don't remember where it was, but I saw this very recently, like a day or two ago. But aliens are literally just like deep sea creatures. We just figured out a way to get to deep sea creatures.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, I
I
like that.
mean,
I really like that.
like you've seen those just absolutely disgusting, ugly ass, gross,
Yo,
I
that
don't like
shit's from
that.
space. That didn't come. That was brought here. Like
Yeah, like the
the
like,
fucking
like those
squids, man.
the eels that like light up, and like the bottom of like 20,000 feet. Like that's an alien,
Yeah,
which is just underwater.
dude,
Um,
fungus. Fungus is insane.
yeah, yeah. So I would like to believe, that if you put a gun to my head, yeah, my answer would be yes.
Mm.
No, I don't stand by that if there's no gun to my head, but
Yeah, yeah,
that's my
yeah,
answer.
yeah. Okay, I'll remove the gun
Thank
now.
you. Yeah, there we go.
um, yeah, I'm very much a believer, but I didn't bring you here to tell you about my crazy beliefs.
Yeah,
We so back to ghosts. I agree with you about ghost has like that implies a life after death,
yeah.
right? But I do believe in interdimensional life. So I believe in extraterrestrial life and also interdimensional life, if you can call it that, because are you alive if you don't have to eat and breathe? I think not by human definition, but
Yeah.
um, extraterrestrial existence. I mean, interdimensional existence, I guess. Like, so I guess my question in that, um, have you ever experienced something that you couldn't rationalize, like you couldn't explain?
Yes, but can I pee?
You can pee. I can pause it. Alice, after this not commercial break, we'll be right back. I'm gonna pee too. That's a good idea.
Perfect.
After that short commercial break, we are back, Alice. On the last episode of Dragon Ball Z, I was asking Kevin if he had any experiences that he couldn't rationalize.
I can't remember. Sleep paralysis.
Oh
So
yeah.
I experienced that one time.
Mm.
Um, I guess I am rationalizing it with sleep paralysis, but I mean, I would assume that's what it was, but it was very, very frightening. And what was weird about it is there was somebody else who had slept in my bed, and that sounds very inconspicuous, but um, it's just a friend who just she took a nap in my bed at work. This was in college, you know how shit is, but she experienced the same thing like right around that time.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, that I guess is I'm unable to rationalize in the same bed. But that happened. Um, Outside of that, no. I mean, no. I guess that's the biggest thing.
What was that like? Did you see anything?
So at the time I shared a room with my roommate, like a bedroom. I had my bed here. His was like 5 feet away to the left, and um, it was like there was just a massive weight on my chest. I could not sit up. I couldn't speak, but it was like this dark shadow over my body. And I remember like trying to mouth, or I thought I was saying my roommate's name, but I guess I was just mouthing it. I was saying his name was Phil. Is Phil? He's still
My
alive.
roommate's name is also Phil, like
Ah,
currently.
shout out to Phil.
Shout out to
Um,
all the Phils out there.
yeah. But I was like, um, and I think I was trying to tell him to turn the light on, and he did. And once he turned the light on, I think is when I kind of like snapped out of it. But I just remember being like, I wanted him to like hold my hand and like go outside and turn all the lights on and make sure everything was okay. That was a weird ass experience. There are probably some from when I was younger that you know that I don't remember exactly, but thankfully, oh well, this isn't major, but every time I go, not every time, but I've probably been there. Shit, I don't know, quite a few times at this point, but at least 4 or 5 times that I have gone to visit my dad's grave, there has been a little deer not too far away, just randomly. somewhere around there. And we also, my dad and I'll never forget, there was a like 10, 12 deer in this field one time when he was driving home when I was really younger and when I was real young. And he always brought that back up. I don't know. It's one of those things, but, and now there's a deer that pops up right across our house here. And also I'm not shitting you here, I swear. And I guess there's some other stuff like this, I guess. But last year, my dad passed away at like 12:30 a.m., somewhere right around there. And at that time, on the anniversary of his death, I was looking out the window, out our back window here, and a deer walked across our backyard. Swear to God. So I don't know that's called coincidence, I guess. I haven't tried to think too much into it, but that's one thing. I've even gone so far as like I want to get a deer tattoo because of that.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, life is bizarre. I don't think any of us really have it figured out quite. Like we're still a very young species. I think if we don't kill ourselves with nuclear bombs, then we have a long road ahead of us.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, how long has, I mean, just look at America, I guess, as a country, 200 and I
yeah,
don't even know,
nothing.
20, 30 some years. Exactly. That's nothing.
Nothing at all.
That's a tiny blip on the radar
Yeah.
of the world. It is, what's wild is to think, I mean, I would definitely, if you put a gun to my head, I would say yes. Earth is the most advanced, configured civilization out there.
Oh, okay, interesting. So I thought earlier you said that there had been aliens here at one point in time, or were you referring to like aquatic animals?
I'm just saying, like, Earth, we have the most life and the most like abundant. I think there are, yes, like it's somewhere out there in the
Oh, well,
fucking
yeah,
gigantic solar system. There are aliens. Absolutely.
it's seemingly infinite. So there's probably an infinite amount of different, um, or close to an infinite amount of intelligent life, or just life in general. Intelligence is hard to define, but I guess life is also hard to define. But
There could be two aliens having the exact conversation that we are having right now on their planet, talking about us, and like, I'm not shitting you, and like, we don't know that. We don't fucking
yeah,
know.
we
Um,
actually, yeah, we don't know shit at all. It's obviously we talk a lot of philosophy here, and Descartes, I think therefore I am, has always to me been like, what the fuck does that mean?
mhm.
It's like maybe being like, maybe this is what it's like to think and not be. Like we don't, what does that mean, Descartes?
Yeah.
Like we don't know anything. We don't know anything at all. And that was like his cornerstone, like the one thing we do know is that we are. But what do you mean by that? And that's yeah, the universe is extremely humbling the more like you learn about it. Like I love that you brought up the oceans. Like that's a fascinating topic too. Like
Oh,
um
I'm petrified.
it's as scary as space is.
I want no part of it. No part of it.
Yeah.
Man, yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's two parts to the ocean, like the unknown of the ocean itself. The farther you go out, how deep it is, and just, I mean, it's fucking insane. And then just the power of water itself,
Mm.
um, which isn't just the ocean. That can be anywhere, but the power of water and its ability to just, I mean, whew, you're in Nashville. I mean, fuck, there's
Yeah.
been some insane storms there over the last 10 years. Even when I was there, the one, it was like a year after I moved. It might have been like during COVID, where there was like huge floods everywhere.
You probably saw
Like,
some tornadoes here too.
Uh yes, the big one in March of 2020.
Yep.
That was right after I moved, but I do know some people that were impacted by that.
Mhm.
Totally unrelated, but the bombing, I fucking worked at Lyft,
Oh yeah.
at Second and Commerce.
Oh
So that was
shit.
like, yeah, I was
Oh
gone.
shit.
I was gone already. I had moved, but like it was still weird to see. And like,
Yeah.
I mean, they're lucky that there was nobody like in the buildings and stuff. And
Hmm.
that, yeah, that's just a whole other conversation. But yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. We got on the topic of bombings from talking about water, but yeah.
Yeah, man. Earlier on, we were talking about you think when we die, I mean, you decompose and break down, and that's it. And you were talking about how that can be a really like a scary thing for people to deal with. Is that
Yep.
is that something that's scary to you?
Ah, oof.
Sorry. It's
No, it's a great question. I don't want to die. I mean,
mm,
you know, I'm in no hurry to die. Um,
it is scary.
but
Yeah.
but yeah, yeah. I mean, there's I guess a certain level of peace with it, and knowing, I guess when my dad died, he had a very very rough childhood. Was always very he did not have great mental health. And so when he died, it was nice to know
Mm,
that that pain no longer existed.
mm.
Um, and so, uh, yeah, man, it's hard. I just hope that I go out in peace. Which that's all. I feel like I've said this 15 times in this conversation, but that's a whole other conversation itself. But um, yeah, I mean, that's a very deep topic. That I mean, death. I have always been fascinated by death. Um,
Yeah, me too.
yeah, it's always something that I've found to be easy to write about, because it's always, it's kind of grim to say, but it's
Do you
always
write?
kind of, oh yeah, yeah. I'm a published poet. I got a few
Oh, I
songs.
didn't know
Yeah,
this. Okay. That's
yeah.
awesome.
That's how that's kind of how the idea of the creative outlet started. With Mid-Park is like I needed to do this, and I started publishing poetry, and then
Where do you post it or publish it?
haven't in a while. Have not in a while. Been years, 2 3 years since I've published poetry. But um, Cordy and I were talking about Sam from Anything Is Everything. We may or may not have a song we're writing. Yeah, and stuff like that. And I have there's one, independent publishing company. I don't honestly know if they're still doing stuff or not, but it's just like a by chance thing. But it happened, and I'm looking at the books right now that my poetry is in, so it's pretty cool. But yeah, that was like a big transition time for me, was poetry. And so when I moved to Nashville, that was right after my dad died, and that was also the time. This is all kind of coming together here, where I distanced myself from some friends who were overly religious, and
Mhm.
kind of not the good religious at all. The pompous.
The judgmental. Yeah.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. And then at that same time, like I said, I had grown up on sports and loved them, and I still do. But now it's much more of just a leisure thing for me. I used to be that type of bro dude that was like, "Fuck you, yeah, yeah." But as I started to, really come into my own in poetry and art and music, that all kind of subsided. And this is all again kind of coming around the same timing of right when I moved to Nashville and I started writing, and I was working midnights and just was super fucking lonely, and that was like a savior for me. Was finding this outlet of poetry and writing and expressing myself in that way, and being vulnerable and posting shit that I'm like, man, this might be weird. People might think this is weird, you know. But I'm gonna do it anyways. And that was the first time I'd ever done that, because I grew up with a lot of judgmental ass friends, and yeah.
Yeah. I find death to be something that's very
We went from the topic of death back to me talking about judgmental friends.
yeah, it's all circular, man.
It is. No, it really is. Go ahead.
Um,
Yes.
no, I was just gonna say I also find it very motivating and easy to write about. Something that got me thinking when you were talking about death earlier is like memento mori, remember that you will die. And
It's a great song by Lamb of God.
oh yeah, I don't think I know that track.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Lamb of
Um,
God is I love metal. One of my favorite genres,
oh, me too.
subgenres of rock. Memento Mori is a song by Lamb of God. Just check it out.
Okay, I definitely will.
Yeah.
Yeah, it means remember that you will die, and it there's also I think it was yeah, it's 21 Pilots had a song. Uh I don't know if they still make music now that I think about it. Anyway, have you heard when's the last time you heard a 21 Pilots song?
Been a while.
It's been a while, right? I just I didn't thought
Been a
about that in a
while.
while.
Yeah.
Anyway, death inspires me like a dog inspires a rabbit. And it is very short, man, and it's good and it's bad, but it's precious, and we got to make the most of it. Yeah, it's a scary thing for me. Like life is just as scary as death is. I have it pretty good, honestly. Like I have I have good friends I can talk to and have like these kind of conversations with, but I live in a very headspace of thinking about the bigger things and thinking
Hmm.
about the world's issues. I stay pretty plugged into like world news,
Yeah.
and it's not healthy all the time for me mentally. And it makes it a lot easier to have good friends that you can talk to. Makes it makes this whole thing a lot easier. Good art, being able to
Yep.
go see good music. Um, there's a lot of really great things to be grateful for. Uh, So, so yeah. Um, all that to
Absolutely.
say, all that to say, I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Oh,
Uh,
of course. Thanks. Thank you for the time. And yeah, it's a very interesting conversation. And I'm always down, to talk about stuff like this. I'm sure I rambled on a lot, but yeah, I too, I'm looking at my two dogs on my bed right now. I got a roof over my head. Everything's perspective, and that's another thing that is really dawned on me over the last 5 to 10 years as I've come into my own, and realized what I believe about religion and politics and socially and myself, is perspective is everything.
mm,
You know, there's sure I could sit here and be whiny and upset every day with some things, but there's a lot of other good things that I know, that not other people have.
yeah,
So
I have
yeah.
this whole rant I've done several times on the podcast about why Batman sucks and Daredevil and Punisher are way better. But long story short, Batman is something Joker talks to Batman about in many iterations. Is
Hmm.
if you actually gave a fuck about Gotham, you would kill me, but you don't. You just want someone to punch, and
Yeah.
he's right. He's right. I'm a very I like it's no secret to anyone who's seen the show. I'm a very radical person in terms of how I think we move forward. Um, I don't see a lot of good options. And I've been pretty vocal about this. And that's like one freedom we have here is that we can say the uh, the dangerous things. And I wish I didn't see it that way. But unfortunately, I do. And like I said, I have it pretty great. Like I've got a job that puts food on the table and a little bit more. And it's like I got a house, I got good friends, but there's a lot going on in the world that is unfair and doesn't sit well with me at all. Um, and there's people that could change it and are willfully not just being complacent to it, but are propagating it. Um, and honestly, it will continue that way. Bill Burr has a great quote about, you know why there's a pile of trash in the ocean the size of Texas? Because psychopaths run the world, and you get nice people like Martin Luther King, and they get loud, and then they get killed. And it's like until nice people kill the psychopaths, this is the world we'll live in. And he's fucking right. Uh, People have to take things into their own hands. I do believe in, so we were talking about cancel culture. I believe in social justice. If I see something going on that I don't approve of, I'm going to step in, even if it's not any of my business. But like we just have to be careful how we wield that, I think. Um, it's really easy to have like think you're doing the right thing and end up perpetuating evil on accident. Um, that's something I have to watch with myself is like yes, combat evil where you see it, but be aware of what your actions are doing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Courtney's been on the show a few times, and she's always like, "Shut up! Don't talk about don't." A lot of artists like, "Oh yeah, maybe we don't go down that rabbit hole this time."
No, I think
Yeah.
I very much hear you, and I think something that I respect about you just off this interview alone is you've heard every idea that I've had. You've not shut it down. You've not said that that's weird or shaking your head or anything at all. I think everybody has different. I just we've talked about this a few times already. Everybody has different ideas about how things should be, and I do think. I mean, history repeats itself.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I hope it's not. I hope that it's not. I don't know if it'll be in my lifetime, but I do see things coming to a head at some point in the world, um, in America. Whether that is a world war.
It's Armageddon.
Yeah, whatever it looks like. But I mean, it's just things have been talked about for so long, and there's been conflict for so long. Again, internationally, uh, right here at home. So I do see that likely happening at some point if history repeats itself like it always does. I hope I'm not here. I have no interest in getting involved. If anything like that ever happens, I'm going to find a corner somewhere in a nice little comfortable room and just live my life until it is no more.
Mm.
I have no interest in getting involved in any of that. I mean, as I've said, man, life is too fucking short. That's
Yeah.
the most cliche shit ever, but that's the biggest thing that I ever really, really realized. I mean, I'm 31 years old. I've said that I think 3, 4 times already, and that's crazy for me to say. I don't have my beard grown out right now, but if I did even another week or two, you'd see some straight gray lines in here, and it's crazy. But yeah, I'm thankful I'm here and having this conversation.
Yeah, man. It's been fun. You mentioned earlier like I wasn't shutting anything down, and that's something I've learned. Um I want to grow up to be I'm 27. I want to grow up to be uh but when I'm old, I want to still have a kind of curiosity of a child when I'm
Yeah,
as long as I live. Something I've learned, if anyone who's been around for extended periods of time, like a toddler or even like an infant, can tell you it's that you can learn a lot from children. You can learn a lot from anyone, or just going outside and looking at nature if you're paying attention. So I have some strong ideas about things, like where I feel pretty confident about a few things, but there's nothing I'm dogmatic. The only thing I'm dogmatic about is anti-dogmatism. You gotta be, I'm very stern about, you gotta be open-minded.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I very much believe that's, and I was not for the longest time. That was a big part of my transition to adulthood as well. Around that, when I moved to Nashville, I thought I fucking knew everything. I thought, I thought I thought it was the shit. I just, and you're humbled real quick. And over the years, I've learned, oh my gosh, being open minded and having an open heart is very, very important.
Yep. I think
Yeah,
that is a great note to end it on, man. Kevin, thank you
no
so
doubt.
much for being here. I'm gonna
Yeah,
put links down below. Alice, go check out Mid-Park. Also, you've got a song you're working on, so thanks for giving me the exclusive on that. Be on
yeah,
the lookout for that. Um, and thank you again. This has been a great
yeah.
conversation. Next time you're in
Thanks,
Nashville,
Alex.
I'd love to buy you a beer, man.
Oh yeah, that'll be hopefully this fall.
And we'll
See ya.
see you next week, Alice. Bye.